We are finally reaching the end of our study in Revelation in the 7 letters to ask ourselves the question, what is a good church? This is the second last church. Laodicea is going to be the next church. We are doing Philadelphia today. And I'll probably make a video to cap this off, recap everything we did, everything we learned, to ask the question, what is a good church? We have a lot of opinions. We have a lot of things we look at. And it's interesting when we look at what Jesus says makes a good church and what we usually look at, it's not the same. Because Philadelphia is one of the few letters that doesn't have a rebuke. It's one of the few churches that just did good. Only 2 of the 7 managed to get that kind of testimony from Christ. So it's a very good church. It's one of the perfect examples to look at when asking ourselves what's a good church. We will see that they are faithful even though they are weak. And even though they are weak, they are not just faithful, they also have a strong sending focus. They are not just focused on themselves, they are focusing outward into the world. So we will see that none of the things we usually look at, like what's the numbers like? What kind of seating do they have? Do they have air conditioning? What does the program look like? How many members do they have? That doesn't matter to Christ about what makes a good church, and we need to learn from that when we judge what is a good church. Let's read the letter. It's a very short letter. It's from verse 7 to verse 13 in chapter 3. And to the angel of the church in Philadelphia write, and this is what the Holy One, the true one, the one who has the key of David, the one who opens and no one shuts, the one who shuts and no one can open says, I know your works. Behold, I have put before you an open door that no one is able to shut, that you have a little strength and have kept my word and did not deny my name. Behold, I am causing those of the synagogue of Satan, the ones who call themselves Jews and are not, but are lying, behold, I will make them come and kneel down before your feet and acknowledge that I have loved you, because you have kept the word of my patient endurance. I also will keep you from the hour of testing that is about to come upon the whole inhabited world, to put to the test those who live on the earth. I am coming quickly. Hold fast to what you have, so that no one may take away your crown. The one who conquers, I will make him a pillar in the temple of my God, and he will never go outside again. And I will write on him the name of my God, and the name of the city of my God, the New Jerusalem, that comes down from heaven, from my God, and my new name. The one who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches. And this is usually where you expect me to start going into the history and tell you what the city was like, because the cities are usually relevant towards understanding the letter and the church. Not today. I'm going to hold that off until verse 12, where the promise of the conqueror comes, to the one who conquers, to the one who overcomes, like in every letter. And here, this history of the city will become very relevant. But until then, we can just stick to a pure Bible study. And we can start in verse 7. Let's just read that again. And to the angel of the church in Philadelphia write, this is what the Holy One, the true one, the one who has the key of David, the one who opens and no one shuts, and no one can open, says. And the first we notice is the expression of Jesus in this. This is what the Holy One, the true one. If we read that, we see an Old Testament description that's usually only given to God. Only God is the Holy One. Only God is the true one. So Jesus is clearly pointing at himself as the writer of these letters that John is noting down. And he's saying that he is the Holy One. He is the true one. He is God. He is the God of the Old Testament. Then we go on to the one who has the keys of David. This is usually very confusing to people, because what are the keys of David? And the keys of David we actually find in the book of Isaiah, chapter 22, verse 22. And this is where we read about Eliakim, Eliakim. Eliakim is given the keys of David. And what does he do with the keys of David? And I will put the key of the house of David on his shoulder, and he shall open, and no one will be able to shut. And he shall shut, and no one will be able to open. This is because the people who were in charge of Jerusalem were doing a terrible job. The king wasn't doing what he was supposed to do. There was trouble in the city, and there was trouble reaching the king, which was not supposed to happen. And he is getting the key to the house of David. So he is getting the key to the king's house. He is going to be in charge to make sure that everything is going as it's supposed to be. He is even going to control the schedule of the king. So he is in charge. He decides who gets to come into the palace. He is the one who decides who gets to see the king. He is the one who decides what is going to happen when. When is the door going to be locked? When is the door going to be open? And now we go back to Revelation and we ask, what does it mean that Christ has this key? That's where we're going in verse 8. Christ is, let's just finish this. Who opens and no one can shut, and who shut and no one can open. So Christ is in control. He has the key. He decides who goes where, who goes when. And exactly what that means becomes clear in verse 8. Verse 8 starts with, I know your works. This is important because in the previous church we also had, I know your works, but they are incomplete. Over here we have, I know your works. I have put before you an open door that no one can shut. That you have little strength. You have kept my word and did not deny my name. So the previous church that had, I know your works, they didn't finish their works, they didn't complete their works were not good enough, and that's why Christ is judging them. This church is weak. You wouldn't expect them to be able to do the work that they were called to do, but they did. They suffered the persecution and didn't turn their back on Christ. They kept on doing, and they kept to the word. And this is important because there's usually two problems in the churches. The one is that they do not stick to the word and they get false prophets like the whole Jezebel thing. They go off the path because they're not keeping to the word. Philadelphia is keeping to the word. They are sticking to the Bible. They are sticking to the commands of Jesus. They did not deny his name. Now we ask, but here in the middle, what is this door that's being opened and shut? And this is a massive debate. That's why I marked it in red. And you can also see I have a different red one down at the bottom in verse 10 that's coming up, which is also debated. But this debate is usually this door. You have two sides. One side will say it is the door to heaven, that they will go there for sure. And it would make sense in the context of verse 12, the promise to the one who overcomes. The other option is because the Bible always uses this door open and closes, especially in Acts when Paul uses it as a missions phrase. God is opening the door. He is opening the opportunity to go spread the gospel in the world. I'd say it's biblically correct to think that both are right. yes, these people are saved. Yes, they are going to heaven. And yes, the door being open and shut is missional. And when I think about this, I'm looking at the works and that they are weak, they don't have a lot of strength. The immediate thing that comes to my mind is that they were being persecuted, they were being opposed. They didn't have enough strength to really go out into the world and make a real impact, make a real difference. And Christ is telling them, like, I'm going to open the door so that you will be able to do that. Because it's in his strength, not in the church's strength. That's how I would interpret this. You don't have to agree with me. The other option is also biblically valid and true, that Christ has opened the door to heaven. No problem. Verse 9. Behold, I am causing those of the synagogue of Satan, the ones who call themselves Jews and are not, but are lying. Now here I want to, while reading the commentaries, it was so, it's very noticeable that a lot of anti-Semitic people are using this verse to qualify themselves. I can see a lot of stuff like the Nazis and so on would want to twist this verse to show, like, yeah, look at the Jews are bad, the Jews are the synagogue of Satan. That's not at all what this verse means. The Jews are supposed to be God's people. They are supposed to be his chosen nation that's representing him on the earth. They are supposed to be a synagogue of Christ. But they rejected him. And because they rejected Christ, they are rejecting the Christians. They are killing the Christians. And that's why they are becoming a synagogue of Satan. Like Jesus said to Peter when he opposed him, "Go away from me, Satan." Satan means the one who opposes. So if you're a Jew, you're opposing Christ, you're opposing the gospel, you are becoming an opposing force, you are a synagogue of Satan. And what would specifically happen in the context of this city and this time period is that the Romans would accept other religions, but you needed to be a registered state, recognized religion. And Judaism was. And because Judaism was state recognized, they didn't have to sacrifice to Caesar because it was opposing their religion. And they didn't have to do all of the sacrifices. But the early Romans viewed Christianity as a subset of Judaism. And the Jews went to the Roman authorities and told them, like, these people aren't Jews. They are something else. They are a new, different religion. So they were using the Romans to persecute the Christians, to kill the movement. They were turning into a synagogue of Satan. Not because Jews are satanic or Jews are demons or Jews are bad. It's about, are you with Christ or against him? Let's say you're a government of a country, and as a government you are opposing Christ. You are a government of Satan, using this way of speaking. Not because the people in the government are satanic. Not because there is no hope for these people and they cannot be saved or we need to get rid of them. No, they are opposing Christ. They need to be saved. They need to hear the gospel. The discussion goes on in verse 9. Behold, I will make them come and kneel down before your feet and acknowledge that I loved you. This is a reversal of an Old Testament promise in Isaiah 60 verse 14. This is about the eschaton, the day of the Lord. And in the eschaton, when the Lord comes, when he establishes his kingdom, He will call all the nations towards the Jews, because the nations were killing the Jews, persecuting the Jews, rejecting the God of the Jews. And the Lord said, when he comes, he is going to make the nations bow down before them and admit that they were the servants of the Lord. Let's read the verse. And the children of those who oppressed you shall come to you bending low. And all those who treated you disrespectfully shall bow down at the soles of your feet. And they shall call you the city of Yahweh, Zion, the Holy One of Israel. What God is doing, or Jesus is doing in Revelation, he is basically inverting this promise. As Israel has this promise that the nations will accept who they are, will come to bow down before them and admit that they are the house of the Lord. So the Jews, that is now rejecting the Lord, that is now being a synagogue of Satan, going up against the Lord, going up against the gospel, that's attacking the church. They will one day admit that the Christians are the people of the Lord. They will one day have to admit that we are the representation of the Lord here on earth. Which will be an interesting thing to see in the day of the Lord. It's going to be someday, because there's going to be war. There's going to be spiritual war, not just physical, not just people. You're going to have all of this recognition of the Lord. You're going to have the official physical kingdom being planted. That day is going to be something. And the thing I want to point out here, the whole synagogue of Satan idea. Look, this is nothing new for the Jews. You see it all throughout the Old Testament. You see it in the wilderness generation, when Moses led them out into the desert and they turned their back on the Lord, started complaining, started challenging him. The Lord sent them to die for 40 years because they rejected him. The same thing happens throughout Judges, when you have this spiral of the people just turning away from the Lord, doing what is good in their own eyes instead of following him as their king. The Babylon generation, where you have all of these prophets coming to warn Israel, turn back to the Lord, or else the Lord's going to send Babylon and Assyria to destroy you. They didn't listen. I think we can easily accuse the Jews of all kinds of things. We can easily judge the Jews, especially if you read the Old Testament, like what these people are seeing, all of these miracles, they are hearing the voice of the Lord. They are supposed to know better. Why are they not following the Lord? The same can be said about the church. That's exactly this phrase that's being repeated in the end. Those who have an ear, let them hear what the Spirit says to the churches. Like I said in the beginning of this series, it's always about willful blindness, always about willful deafness. You know the truth. You know what you're supposed to be doing, but you choose not to do it. And as a church, we need to be careful not to become a church of Satan, in the sense that we know the truth, but we can choose to ignore it. We know what Christ expects from the church. We can choose to act differently. And before we know it, a church can easily turn against the gospel. You see it all the time with churches like rejecting the Old Testament, or people calling Paul the Antichrist, the Apostle Paul. There are people who want to accept Christ but still stick to the Old Testament law and not accept the New Testament, the New Covenant. They call themselves churches. The Jehovah's Witnesses, who reject Christ as God, they call themselves a church. That's a church of Satan. That's a church that is rejecting the truth. That's a church that is actively working against the gospel. And it happens a lot easier and a lot more frequently than we admit. It's something we do need to keep in mind, that we need to be careful of. Verse 10. Because you have kept the word of my patient endurance, I also will keep you from your hour of testing that is about to come upon the whole inhabited world, to put to the test those who live on the earth. This is pointing towards something more. This is the hour of testing that is about to come upon the whole inhabited world, to put those who are on the earth to the test. In Revelation, this is pointing towards the tribulation. And it's the whole world, it's not just in the city. It's not just in Philadelphia. So this is a prophecy, this is pointing towards something that's coming. There is trouble coming, there is a testing coming, and God is going to protect them from it. So here you have the old debate of, is the church going to be in the tribulation, or is the church going to be raptured? Now, I have an opinion on this. I am on the side of the rapture, but I also have to admit, when we ask the question, what is a good church? It doesn't matter. It's not going to change the outcome. It's not going to change anything that we teach here. So believe what you believe. Choose the explanation you want. I do not think you can root it on this passage. People want to go, I know, on the rapture side to that dia. But you have kept my word. I will also keep you from. Yeah, let's not explain in Greek. Let's stick to the English. Now, I will keep you from. The rapture people will say we're going to be taken out of the world. The group, I mean. The people who reject the rapture will say that it's going to be like in Egypt, when God told them to have the lamb, to slaughter the lamb at the Pascha, and the angel of death passed by them. They were protected from the death of the firstborn. You're going to have to go to a lot more passages than this to find the answer. Because you're not going to, if you have a debate between two opinions, this verse is not giving enough information. I don't think on either side you fall, it's going to change the meaning of this passage. I will, however, motivate you to find an answer for a good reason, not just because my pastor say or my favorite theology system says I have to believe something. A biblical reason for what you believe. We're not going to be doing that today. But God's warning them, there's something coming. But they will be protected from it. And once again, the great thing here that I see is that they are weak. So God is going to enable them to do the work. They are weak, but God is going to allow them to survive this whatever is coming. The tribulation, which in Revelation is a couple of chapters, so we're not going to explain what the tribulation is, but the trouble that's coming. Yes, they might be weak. God will be the one that protects them. I think in a good church, this is basic New Testament teaching as well. It's not you. It is Christ. You are working through the power of Christ, and you are being protected by the power of Christ. Not by how much money you have, not by how much influence you have or how strong you are. By Christ. His power is made known in our weakness. Verse 11. I am coming quickly. Hold fast to what you have, so that no one can take away your crown. I don't want to focus on the I am coming quickly. It's the original Greek gives the feel of he is coming definitely. He is coming for sure. He's coming unexpectedly. Not like in a short period of time. The important one here is hold fast to what you have so that no one can take away your crown. So the promises of crowns in the Bible is nothing new. We are familiar with it. We know that if you do good, faithful work, you will be rewarded with a crown one day when we meet Christ. The important thing here is hold fast to what you have. Christ is not telling them to go and do something so that they can earn their crown. They are already a good church. They are already doing what's supposed to be done. But they need to be careful to hold on to it, not to let go of what they have. And how easy is it for a church, a good church, to go bad? How easy is it for us as Christians to live a good life, to live holy, to be active in the ministry, and just grow cold and give up and fall off the road somewhere along the way? That must not happen, so that we don't lose our reward when we meet Christ, so that we can hear, "Well done, good and faithful servant, here is your reward." Instead of getting to heaven and being like, "Oh, yeah, you're also here." Verse 12. The one who conquers, I will make him a pillar in the temple of my God. And he will never go outside again. And I will write to him the name of my God. And I will write the name of my God and the name of the city of my God, the new Jerusalem, that comes down from heaven, from my God, and my new name. Here is where the city's history is important, and I see I wrote to verse 12, verse 11. It's supposed to be verse 12. Now, in Philadelphia, if we look at my notes here, Philadelphia was devastated by a massive earthquake in 17 AD. Completely destroyed. And not just Philadelphia, it was something like, I can't remember. But it was like a dozen cities or more that was destroyed by a huge earthquake. And suffered from frequent seismic activity that often forced its citizens to live in the countryside for safety. So, massive earthquake that completely destroyed the city. They rebuilt the city, but now you have these daily tremors. And you can read, there was one historian, I forgot his name, but there is a Roman guy who wrote during this period, and he said that this is the city of earthquakes. You would see new cracks in the buildings every day. So people wouldn't live in the city center. They would do their commerce, they would work, they would go there during the day, but at night they would leave the city. They would go sleep in the countryside because the city was unsafe. If these buildings would collapse, they were all going to die. So they were ready for these buildings to collapse. They slept outside of the city. And then, in gratitude for imperial aid during these disasters, the city was twice renamed. First to Neocronessa, in honoring of Tiberius, and later to Flavia, in honoring Vespasian. So the Caesars aid the city, they rebuilt the city, and the city got a new name every time, in honor of the Caesar that helped them. And when you read this, with the history of the city, with the promise that's made to these people, the promise to the one who conquers makes a lot of sense. Because I will make him a pillar in the temple of my God, and he will never go outside again. So you're going to receive that special place in God's temple in heaven if you overcome, and you will never leave again. This is a temple that holds. This is a temple that's not going to fall. This is not a temple that's going to crack with earthquakes. And you as a pillar in this temple is always going to be strong, always in pristine condition. You will never have to be removed or replaced. And I will write on him the name of my God and the name of the city of my God, the new Jerusalem that comes down from heaven, and my new name. So as the city was helped by the Caesar, they would change their name in honor of Caesar. What's going to happen to the one who overcome? Because they relied on Christ, because they didn't turn their back on Christ, because they did their work in His power, and because they were kept safe in the power of Christ, now you are going to receive the name of God Himself, of Jesus Himself, of the city of Jerusalem. You will be there forever, protected, safe, never hurt again, marked by Him. And then we end with, the one who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the 7 churches. And if I ask myself, what is a good church? I have 4 takeaways here that will be practically what we can look at, what we can spot, what we can see. You might have more that you can get from this passage. But we have a recognition of Christ's authority, because Jesus is God. A good church will always put Christ first. They will always worship Him as Lord. They will always hold to the word, no matter how hard it is. They will always hold on to their faith, no matter how hard it is. And hey, we see a lot of Christians, popular Christians, turning their back on Christ. We see a lot of churches turning their back on the Bible. I mean, just look at how many churches have those LGBT flags and stuff hanging and going on. Clearly going against it. I've heard missionaries say that they cannot believe that God will throw people in hell. I'm like, come on. Stick to the word. Stick to the faith. And a good church will do that. A good church will also hold on to their new identity in Christ. They will always remember, I am Christ's child now. We are a body of Christ. We're not human. We don't have to rely on human things. We don't measure ourselves to human systems. We rely on Christ. We measure ourselves to His word. And when we read His word, what does it say about who we are as a church? The last one I have is, on a mission with God's open door. God is giving us an opportunity to share the gospel. God has given all of us a gift. God has given all of us a task. Every single Christian, if you say you're saved, you have the Holy Spirit. You have the power of the Holy Spirit to go and share the gospel. You are sent to go and share the gospel. And in a good church, people will be sharing the gospel. They will be using their gifts in ministry. They will be active. And my question is, what does our church look like? If I would measure my church to the church in Philadelphia, will I be able to say, yes, my church is as good as this? If yes, then keep holding on. Do not let go of that. That's rare. Very few churches ever reach that point. But if you say no, we can easily shift the responsibility and ask, what can the church do so the church can improve? But I'm going to ask you, what can you do to serve your church so your church can improve? Until next time.